Number 10. Captain Cook Hotel. The Captain Cook Hotel, of course located in Anchorage, Alaska, is said to be haunted by the ghost of one John Jack Sturgis, who is a former chef at the hotel who died in a fire back in 1986. What a start to a list already. We're just in the ghost depths already. Guests and staff alike have reported various paranormal experiences such as unexplained voices, cold spots, and the sound of footsteps in empty hallways, which, I don't know, all signs point to ghosts when you put those in a row. Some guests have even reported seeing the apparition of a man in a chef's uniform. I'm not trying to laugh. That's just, imagine that, you know what I mean? 4 a.m. in the middle of the night. You're like, chef, may I? Can you turn off the light? Thanks. Like a ghost wearing a chef's hat. It's like, that's only funny. That is an only funny thing. That is from Luigi's Mansion. He's just smacking the spatula all night looking at you. He's like, how do you like your eggs? I'm like, that's so scary. Despite these reports, the hotel remains a popular destination for visitors to Anchorage who are drawn to its unique haunted history. Apparently people want to see a ghost wearing a chef's hat. Honestly, now that I'm talking about it, I kind of want to see that too. But, you know, knock on wood. Number 9, the Golden North Hotel. The Golden North Hotel sounds like a Game of Thrones classic. There have been reports of paranormal activity on the 3rd floor of the Golden North Hotel in Skagway, Alaska. I like when it's specific, when it has a certain floor or certain room. That's how you know it's legit. Guests and staff have reported hearing strange noises, seeing apparitions, and feeling unexplained cold spots on the floor. I guess they're walking around with bare feet. Bare feet in a hotel? That's brave. Some have even claimed to have encountered the ghost of a former employee named Mary, who is said to haunt the hotel. All these ghosts that are haunting their past work establishments. If I die, I'm gonna haunt this place for sure. While the hotel embraces its haunted history and offers guided ghost tours for visitors, which is an odd flex, it's worth noting that paranormal experiences are subjective and not everybody may have the same encounter, okay? So, what's fun to some is haunting to others, so tread carefully in the ghost world. Don't make fun of people online, you know? Some are really afraid of ghosts with chef hats, so. Number 8, Gakona Lodge and Trading Post. There are reports and stories about Gakona Lodge and trading posts being haunted. There's a lot online. This is probably a very real one. Some visitors and staff have claimed to have experienced unusual occurrences and paranormal activity at this lodge, which was supposed to be a winter getaway, but now it's just a Stanley Kubrick classic. According to the stories, the ghost of a woman dressed in 1800s style clothing has been seen walking, or floating rather, through the lodge. And strange noises and footsteps have been heard in empty rooms. It's always an old-fashioned ghost too. It's never a ghost wearing a polo. You ever notice that? It's always like an old Victorian woman. Like why? Why can't we have a newer ghost? Slim pickings on the attire in heaven, I guess. Must be. They're like, hey, we have an old saggy robe and that's about it. Here you go. Go haunt a hotel. There have also been reports of objects moving on their own, doors opening and closing by themselves, and again, cold spots in certain areas on the floor, which, I don't know, it could be lousy heating really if you ask me. It's Alaska, right? Number 7, Westmark Fairbanks Hotel. There have been numerous reports of paranormal activity in room 277 of the Westmark Fairbanks Hotel in Alaska. Again, I like when it's a specific room. That for me seals the deal. It's like 1408. I'm in. I'm locked in. Now I'm a believer. It's so eerie. The room is said to have been haunted by the ghost of a woman who allegedly took her own life there many years ago, which is sad and terrifying. Guests who have also stayed in that room have reported feeling uneasy, or, my personal nightmare, they feel as if they're being watched all night. Yeah, just eyes in a painting, watching you, I guess. Sometimes they even hear strange noises or voices and seeing unexplained movements of objects. Those classic 3 ghost things. Some guests have also claimed to have seen the ghostly figure of a woman in the room or in the hallway. So that's good. This one really hits all the marks. 5 stars for paranormal activity, really. Number 6, the Hilton Anchorage Hotel. Guests and staff members have both reported seeing apparitions, hearing strange noises, and experiencing other unusual phenomenon in various parts of the hotel. Phenomenon? I always add the N there. I'm not sure which one it is. One of the most commonly reported haunted areas of this hotel is said to be the 3rd floor, particularly rooms 309 and 317. 2 for 1 package. It's the north and south sides are haunted, but everything in the middle, yeah, you're good. Just don't explore. Guests who have stayed in these rooms have both reported seeing ghostly apparitions and experiencing other strange occurrences, like lights turning on and off by themselves, and the feeling of being touched by an unseen presence. What a terrible, annoying ghost. I think I would rather see a ghost than have them with the lights all night long. You know what I mean? How annoying is that? You have to get out of your bed and keep shutting it off. That's the worst. That's worse than just being haunted, really. It is a Hilton, so it's probably at least a decent sleep, you know? They're good over there. They got a good, nice breakfast setup in the morning. It's all about the departure the next day. That's all it is for hotels. You could have ghosts all night, lights flickering, but you have a juice bar the next morning? I'll forget about the whole ordeal. We're good, 5 stars. I'm coming back. Number 5, the Van Gilder Hotel. Located in Seward, Alaska, the Van Gilder Hotel, I mean, first of all, this thing is tiny. It looks like a joke. It looks like a cartoon police station. How is this place haunted? It looks like a place Wreck-It Ralph would have a field day with. Small but mighty, I guess. The hotel, which was built in 1916, has a long history of ghosts and ghouls. Numerous reports of paranormal activity over the years. One of the most commonly reported haunted areas is the room 202, where guests have reported unexplained movements of objects and again, the feeling of being watched, which is so scary. I don't like that. It's the worst. There have also been reports of ghostly apparitions in other parts of the hotel, including the lobby and the stairwell. The lobby, these ghosts are getting brave. I mean, not even letting us check in and you're already moving shit around trying to scare us. That's very brave. Okay, you're excited. We get it. The most famous ghost associated with the Van Gilder Hotel is that of a woman named Fanny Guthrie Bame, who apparently died in the hotel back in the 1950s. Guests have reported seeing Fanny's ghostly figure on the 2nd floor. That's where she allegedly fell to her death from the balcony, which is so sad. If I didn't see that again though, as a ghost, I'd be like, oh, this is a terrible TikTok loop scenario. Number 4, Inlet Tower Hotel and Suites. Okay, this one is very large and it looks very haunted, okay? It doesn't look like a mini police station. This one's very Kubrick. This hotel, which was built in 1952, it already has a long history. It's seen a few deaths in its rooms, and of course, to follow, there have been numerous reports of ghostly apparitions over the years. Apparitions, I'm mixing it up now, I'm just saying random words. One of the most commonly reported haunted areas of the hotel is the 15th floor, way high up in here. This is haunted, where guests have heard strange moaning noises. It's kind of funny. That's terrifying, don't get me wrong, but like, that's kind of like, okay, who's doing that? Which room is that coming from, you know? Feeling cold spots and seeing ghostly figures walk around the hallways at night. It's your classic haunted hotel. The most famous ghost associated with the Inlet Tower Hotel is that of a woman who allegedly jumped to her death from the 15th floor. That is really high up. That's so sad. Guests have reported seeing her ghostly figure on the 15th floor, as well as in the hotel's elevator, which is better. That's definitely a step. As long as she's in the elevator this time around, we're good. Keep her in there, not outside on the scary balcony. Inside where it's safe. Number 3, the Fairbanks Memorial Hospital. A haunted hospital. Nice. I couldn't imagine a more vulnerable place to see a ghostly figure. Excuse me, can I get some more jello? Lights are flickering, some chicks floating. You're like, I'm gonna check out. The Fairbanks Memorial Hospital in Alaska. I mean, the hospital, first of all, it was built in 1972, and it has a long history of, well, hospital stuff. A lot of deaths, also a lot of new life. So silver lining, I guess. That's a good thing. One of the most commonly reported areas is the intensive care unit, the ICU. That's what the ghosts say. They say, hey, I see you right there. I'll watch you all night. Both staff members and patients have reported hearing voices, feeling someone touch them who wasn't actually there, and seeing ghosts of past patients walk around the hallways at night. That's the scariest thing I've ever heard of. Past patients, just like... Visitors and staff members have reported seeing a ghostly figure, like a very specific ghostly figure in the ICU, as well as other parts of the hospital. So, could be a past nurse, could be someone who used to work there, maybe someone who was killed while they were building it. I don't know. It's a good ghost. It's a hospital good ghost. That's one you maybe don't mind bumping into at night. Number 2. Ice worms. Yeah, need I say more ice worms, I guess. That's a terrifying thing to look at now that you're in Alaska. I'm dodging these suckers all spring. Now I gotta worry about winter too. God, I hate worms. I'm Canadian. We don't need any ice worms, okay? We're all set. The only time a worm ever lives life in a glacial ice form is in Alaska. How impressive is that? One and only place you'll find ice worms. All your life you see worms shrivel up and then fade away on the sidewalk, but I've never ever seen one near ice. They're supposed to run out of fuel and then die off, but ice worms, these things just keep going. They get stronger. Should that icy temperature rise, however, above freezing, well, that's when these worms die off. It's the way we see worms go normally. They shrivel up and, you know, go, ugh. They get stronger the longer that they wait and plan. Honestly, these worms are kind of cool. If you're ever in Alaska and you see ice worms, comment down below. These are like Captain America worms. I'm weirdly into bugs and these things sound like they're from space, so had to include them. Ice worms. Number 1, the Eldred Rock Lighthouse. We'll finish up with a haunted lighthouse. Not the most exciting, but I'm doing my best here. It's that or ice worms. Both are pretty thrilling, okay? What's creepier than an island full of shipwrecks? You tell me. The lighthouse, which was built in 1906, is located on a remote island in the Lynn Canal, and it was in operation until 1973. One of the most notorious shipwrecks was the Clara Nevada steamship. Now, in 1898, she smashed into Eldred Rock, burst into flames instantly before sinking into the icy depths, probably surrounded by ice worms. The disaster took 75 lives, and it's also believed that hundreds of pounds of gold were on board when this ship sank. So it was a curse. It was for sure cursed. All that gold, that many people died. I smell a curse. I know it. One of the most commonly reported ghost occurrences at the Eldred Rock Lighthouse is the sighting of a ghostly woman, again, you guessed it, wearing all white. The classic Victorian gown. Legend has it the woman was a former lighthouse keeper's wife who died on the island and has remained there in spirit. Remained there. I guess she's stuck there for all of eternity, but we'll say she remained there. And if that's not enough for you, the lighthouse has been the subject of paranormal investigations. And some investigators have captured electronic voice phenomena. Yeah, they got EVPs on this island, so it's the real deal. That's how you know. Remind me to avoid this lighthouse at all costs. Great, cheers.
Coming in number 10, we have La Perle House. Let's kick this off like we're in a Resident Evil game and head over to a haunted mansion. Here's a good question for all of you in the comments. Would you spend a night in a haunted mansion if that meant you could keep it? I think that would be a hard no for me, because what am I going to do with a haunted mansion after I own it? I don't want to stay in it, and I definitely don't think anyone is going to buy it. Well, La Perle House is one of the most famous haunted mansions in the world, and it got its ghostly reputation for a good reason. During the Pacific War, the Japanese soldiers came through and needed a place to house some of their troops. They started to take any large building and use it as a garrison, and the La Perle House was one of the most infamous, because when another country's troops come through and then you house them, they would be really grateful for you doing such a thing, and they would treat the residents with respect. No, that doesn't happen at all. The La Perle House was a site of a ton of horrible tortures. It said that the wailing of someone being tortured to death can still be heard from the ghosts that walk the halls, and there has also been several executions that took place at this mansion. So if you want to see the head of a ghost rolling down some stairs, this would be the best place to find it. Coming in number 9, we have Clark Air Base Hospital, Pampanga. Let's jump from one war story right into another. This airbase hospital was mostly used by American soldiers during the Second World War. As you can imagine, it wasn't a very jolly place to go visit back then. Most of the people who were taken to this hospital were either injured in combat or suffering from some terrible sickness that occurred while they were in the Filipino jungles. That's the problem with waging war on unfamiliar grounds. You can get attacked by things you never expected. There's a lot of troops who died in agony in this hospital, and as you can imagine, a death in suffering brings with it a lot of ghosts. Shadow figures have been seen walking through the halls, and it's very normal to hear the sounds of someone weeping when no one else is around. Coming in number 8, we have Malinta Tunnel, Corregidor. I'm giving you back-to-back hospitals on this one. Why? Because they're a hot spot for ghosts, you silly goose. And just so we're clear, this was a tunnel that was turned into a hospital. Well, not so much a hospital, but a sick bay for injured American troops. And as you can imagine, there has been a lot of people who have died there. The area is now famous for ghostly figures walking around at night. They probably don't even know that they're dead, so it's safe to say that this tunnel isn't somewhere you want to get stuck after the sun goes down. Coming in at number 7, we have Manila City Hall. You know your country has some good spooky stuff when the city hall is infested with ghosts. That's cool as hell. Well, apparently this place is packed with ghosts and they show up like clockwork. As soon as the sun starts going down, spooky stuff will start to pop up all over the building. You get all the standard ghost stuff going on here. People say there's footsteps coming from floors that have no people on them. You can hear whispering coming out of thin air. There's even reports of doors bursting open randomly. I mean, if you're going to be a ghost, you could at least be polite and not slam any of the doors. Thank you very much. Coming in at number 6, we have Mount Maja Az. This island is haunted by a ton of stuff that is outside the world of ghosts, but is still very supernatural. Apparently this place has everything mystical going on over there. There have been reports of dwarves and elves on the island that are apparently really nice. If you come to the island with good intentions, then they will bless you with good luck. But if you come over there with some bad vibes, they will send you a ton of bad mojo that will ruin your whole life. Now there is something over there that is pretty creepy and would keep me away from this island even though they're supposed to be good luck giving dwarves. Apparently this place is also home to some vampires that roam the island looking for new victims to suck the life out of. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a hot vacation spot for me. Coming in number 5 we have Baja Nepula San Ildefonso Bulacan. This is another place that the Japanese used as a garrison while they were waging war. And I don't know if you know this about the Japanese, but even though they seem cute and cuddly now, they weren't always like that. The Japanese used to be brutal. They would try to completely eradicate other cultures, and they saw themselves as the superior Asian race. All others were disposable, and the way they treated the Filipino people was horrible. At Baja Nepula, many people were beaten, tortured, and even the place has such a horrible history that the building has been abandoned ever since, and no one will go close to it. It's said that it has a horrible curse on it. Coming in at number 4 we have Herrera Mansion, Quezon. Now we're moving to a place that has a couple of famous ghosts. It's one thing to have a haunted attraction that has some voices and screams coming out of it, or has stories of people feeling cold spots, but actually seeing the same ghost over and over, that's something you can sell tickets to. Apparently there is a ghost of a Japanese soldier that will wander the property. He sometimes yells out or vanishes and then reappears in an instant. I mean, that's kind of spooky, but I've got a little added bonus that will make the whole thing a lot spookier. The ghost is headless. Yeah, that's exactly what you need to give this place a little extra spooky vibe. Now, even though our headless soldier is the star of the show, there's another set of ghosts that have been seen quite often. There's a ghost couple that has been seen walking around hand in hand around the building. It's thought that they could be the original owners of the building. Coming in at number 3 we have Balete Drive, one of the most famous kinds of hauntings you can have, the Lady in White. There's a house on Balete Drive that is apparently home to a lady in white. She loves to watch people as they walk by and apparently doesn't like men very much. This could be because it's suspected that she was killed by Japanese soldiers. If you're a man driving by the Lady in White's home, she might use her supernatural powers to teleport into your back seat, and when you look into your rear view mirror, you will see her staring back at you with her body drenched in blood. Hopefully she doesn't leave a blood stain on the new leather. Coming in number 2 we have Diplomat Hotel by Guyo. It's safe to say that the events that took place at the Diplomat Hotel were not very diplomatic. I would describe them as horrific and unnecessary, but that's just me. This hotel was a hotspot for executions. This is a place where many nuns and priests were rounded up in an attempt to destroy Catholicism in the Philippines. These nuns and priests were executed in front of everyone, and their heads were then kicked down the steps. Major disrespect on so many levels. Well, when you cut off the heads of that many people, then you're going to anger some ghosts. There's a ton of spirits that call this place home, and many of them are headless. There's so many headless ghosts at this place they don't even have one superstar. They all work together as one major attraction. Coming in at the number 1 spot we have Ilolio. Let's step away from ghosts for a little while and check out something else supernatural that is haunting the island of Ilolio. Turns out there is something way scarier than a vampire in the Philippines. If you thought that the headless ghosts were bad, then this thing is going to make you wish you were surrounded by them. This area in the Philippines is apparently home to the Tik-Tik. It patrols the land and should be something that you try to avoid at all costs. The Tik-Tik is described as a large bird or a bat and will stalk people as they walk in the dark and sneak up on them, and then use its long tongue to start drinking their blood. But that's where its terrifying traits just start. Apparently this creature likes the taste of unborn children. It will find a woman who's pregnant and wait for her to go to sleep. Then it will use its long tongue to pierce the woman's stomach, but do it in such a way where she doesn't wake up. And while she is asleep, the Tik-Tik will eat her baby. That sounds horrific. Thankfully, a simple amulet that has been blessed with some holy water will keep this creature at bay.
Number 10. Nagoro, Japan. From the outside, this city may seem like any other small riverside village in Japan, but the scariest part of this town is its residents. As you journey through the town, you might see an elderly couple tending to their garden, people shopping at the grocery store, and children attending school. But look closely and you will realize that these people aren't actually people. They are life-size dolls. Only around 20 citizens of the village are actual living, breathing humans, the youngest being over 50 years old. So then why is there a school full of children? 12 plush scarecrows sit at their desks doing homework while being taught by an equally felted teacher. These tableaus are present throughout the entirety of the village, especially in the abandoned and fading buildings, adding a constant creepy aura to the sleepy little town. It began in 2002 when a resident created a scarecrow of her father, and it has only continued to grow since then. Number 9. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Forget Hunger Games: The Girl on Fire, Centralia, Pennsylvania is the city on fire. This ghost town in the United States used to have thousands of residents and had a booming economy and infrastructure thanks to the lengthy coal mines around and underneath the town. In the 60s, however, they discovered they had an issue with illegal dumping and built a massive landfill, and eventually it came time to burn it out. What they didn't realize, however, was that there was a hole connected to the mines at the bottom of the garbage, and the fire quickly spread to the coal mines beneath the town. They didn't realize it until smoke started billowing out of the ground, and they discovered that there was no way to put the fire out. Residents were forced out of the town as the fire was causing people to pass out in their homes, and massive sinkholes were opening up in the ground. Some people fought to stay, however, and the once bustling town now has only about 5 residents. To this day, the fires are still burning, and the coal underground could allow the town to burn for another 250 years. Number 8. Gomantong Caves in Malaysia. This one doesn't come with any horrible tragedy or ghost story, but is instead a terrifying destination for those of us who hate creepy crawlies. When you first enter Gomantong Caves in Malaysia, you'll notice a large amount of excrement on the ground. That's because the caves are home to almost 2 million bats that sleep there during the day. When you get further in, the walls and floors seem to be moving. That's because what's left behind by bats attracts millions of cockroaches into the caves. It's almost impossible to take a step without trampling on a few of the creatures, so it's probably a good idea not to wear your favorite shoes if you plan on taking a tour. It doesn't end there though, as the caves are also home to swarms of giant millipedes. So basically it just sounds like somewhere I have absolutely no interest in visiting. But apparently at around 8 p.m. every night, you can see the bats leaving the cave in what looks like a massive black vortex. So if you're willing to kiss a few cockroaches to be able to see that, well, that's your choice. Number 7. Haw Par Villa in Singapore. This theme park is one of those places that you just can't believe somebody actually thought, hey, this is a good idea, and went ahead with building it. Haw Par Villa in Singapore is an amusement park that is home to mostly creepy and bizarre statues. This place is known as basically the opposite of Disneyland, as it is themed after the underworld, and the main attraction is the 10 Courts of Hell. It was built and intended to teach children about morality, with statues of people being punished for committing certain crimes. I think it would be enough to just tell the children that if they sin, they'll have to spend the afterlife at this theme park. Statues include things like animals eating people, half human, half crab creatures, and various other gory tableaus. For those who are fans of the creepy and macabre, this may be a top tier destination spot, but for the rest of us, I think I'll just stick with Disney for now. Number 6. The Stanley Hotel in Colorado. If you're a fan of The Shining, then you're probably already aware of the Stanley Hotel, as this creepy hotel was the basis for the setting of the movie, a visit in 1974 inspiring Stephen King to write the novel, and the pet cemetery on site of the hotel would also serve as inspiration for another book he would write, of course, Pet Sematary. The large estate sitting at the bottom of the Rocky Mountains has a long history, as well as a long history of ghostly hauntings and inexplicable encounters. A ghost tour highlights a lot of the main specters that are said to roam the rooms and halls of the hotel. Stanley himself and his wife Flora apparently remain there, seen within the bar and playing the piano respectively. A few of the rooms are reportedly haunted with specific ghosts. 407 haunted by Lord Dunraven, and 418 is haunted by children who can be heard laughing. Stephen King had stayed within room 217, outside of which a ghost of a young boy is said to appear. The author said he had seen the child himself, and that he was apparently calling out for his nanny. Number 5. Poveglia Island in Italy. Known as Italy's most haunted island and sometimes considered one of the most haunted places in the world, Poveglia Island is home to a long and twisted history. When the bubonic plague was sweeping populations, those who were sick were sent off to Poveglia Island as a sort of quarantine zone, and the same happened when the Black Death was going around. In the late 1800s, an asylum was built on the island. It was poorly constructed and wasn't really used as a place for healing or caring for the sick, but instead as a place of exile for them to be kept away from the rest of the community and to spend the rest of their days. In the 1930s, there was apparently a cruel doctor running the asylum who was responsible for doing unethical experiments on the patients. Eventually, he fell from the bell tower, and while it's long gone, people say that they can still hear the chimes of the bell coming from the island. It is apparently crawling with the ghosts of the many souls who passed away there over the centuries. If you want to check it out for yourself though, you may find it quite difficult, as Italy prevents any tourists from visiting the island, and there is a lengthy application process to even be considered. Number 4. Tranquil Sanatorium in Kamloops, British Columbia. Going up to the Great White North, Tranquil Sanatorium in British Columbia is known as one of the most haunted places in Canada. It was built in 1907 to treat people who were suffering from tuberculosis. It operated this way for many decades until it eventually closed its doors in 1958, as anti-tuberculosis medicine came around in 1940. It became a mental health institution before later becoming a detention facility for young offenders. As with Poveglia, the history of disease and death has led many to believe that the facility and grounds are incredibly haunted, and many people have reported large amounts of paranormal experiences. There are apparently various different ghosts you can spot there, like a mother crying for her child or the sound of children playing. And many people have shared photos from the facility where you can see ghost orbs or the outlines of figures in the dark. One of the main highlights, however, is the tunnels underneath, which were used for transportation and are apparently incredibly haunted. If you're interested, the farm that is now on the property offers tours and even escape rooms. Number 3. Hoia Baciu Forest in Romania. Known as one of the most haunted forests in the world, Hoia Baciu is known as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. The first thing that you'll notice when looking at pictures of the forest are the trees that appear crooked and bent, looking like they're contorting and reaching out for something. There are many legends surrounding the forest, most to do with ghostly and paranormal sightings. There's one story of a girl who disappeared into the forest, only to reappear 5 years later with no memory of what had happened or where she had been. She was wearing the same clothing and apparently hadn't aged at all. There's also another story about a sheep herder and his entire flock of 200 sheep which vanished into the woods, never to be seen again. Those who do enter the forest and make it back out find themselves with mysterious headaches, rashes, and burns with no known explanation. And you know I can't make it through a list without mentioning aliens, so yes, there have been numerous reports of UFOs and extraterrestrials residing within the forest. Number 2. The Paris Catacombs. Claustrophobic underground tunnels filled with 6 million bodies? Of course it's haunted. The Paris Catacombs were created in the 18th century when the cemeteries were becoming overcrowded and they needed to find a quick solution. The 200 miles of tunnels lined with skeletons are home to plenty of ghost stories, legends, and petrifying encounters. One of the most famous stories comes from the 1990s when a group was exploring the dark tunnels and they found an abandoned camera. It had footage on it, and when they played it, they were disturbed to find footage of a man who was clearly lost, running through the catacombs before he eventually drops the camera. Nobody knows what happened to the man or where he ended up. It's also said that if you're there after midnight, the walls will start to speak to you, dismembered voices urging you to venture deeper and deeper into the tomb until you're no longer able to find your way out. Number 1. The Island of the Dolls. In the mid-20th century, a man named Don Julian left his wife to live alone on an island on a lake in Mexico. Shortly after he had moved there, he discovered the body of a girl in the river, followed by a doll floating by. He took the doll and hung it from a tree in an attempt to appease the girl's spirit, but apparently it wasn't enough. For the next 50 years, he would collect dolls from the trash and canals and hang them from all the trees on the island. The dolls and toys are all in various states of disrepair, some completely falling apart, making it one of the creepiest islands on Earth. In 2001, Don Julian himself passed away, his body being discovered in the river. The dolls that still remain on this island to this day are supposedly haunted, there being many reports of their eyes moving to look at you, their arms moving as though to reach out to you, and apparently whispering to each other in the night. If the photos of the island aren't enough to scare you away, you can get onto the island for yourself for just around $2 a person. But once again, I'll leave the exploration up to you guys.
Starting off at number 10, we have Helltown. A very fitting one for us to start off with, I think. Helltown is an abandoned village in Ohio. In the 1970s, the residents of Helltown were pressured to move out by the government, who wanted to make the area into a local park. They left creepy signs and messages for those who would later find their abandoned homes. Now, there are many myths that surround Helltown, such as the church was built by Satanists and has upside down crosses, is said to be an abandoned haunted school bus, and even a monstrous mutant snake created by a chemical spill called the Peninsula Python. The whole place sounds like a great setting for a horror movie, but I think I'll skip on my visit to Helltown. Moving on to number 9 now, we have Baciu Kalnas, otherwise known as the Hill of Crosses. For almost 200 years, Lithuanians have been bringing crosses, statues and carvings to lay at the Hill of Crosses. It's said to be a place to remember the dead and memorialize them. It's a nice thought, but many people find it creepy just how many crosses there are along that walkway. The Soviet Union tried to bulldoze the whole place 3 times, but the crosses just kept coming back, now numbering over 10,000. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Ako de Siwa Fetish Market in Togo. This is a genuine voodoo market. If you've ever wanted to dabble in the dark arts of voodoo or black magic, then firstly, please don't, but otherwise, this is the place to go. There are markets here selling monkey heads, skulls, dead birds, crocodiles, skins, and just about every part of a dead animal you can imagine. All the stuff that's needed for some sort of voodoo spell. Like I said, voodoo practitioners would love this place, but for the rest of us, it's probably somewhere to avoid. Coming in at number 7 now, we have the Cecil Hotel. This hotel in LA was famous for being the site of many mysterious murders, shocking suicides, and creepy cult killings. In 2013, the hotel was trying to recover from its creepy reputation, and then this happened. Canadian tourist Elisa Lam disappeared while staying there. All police had to go on was these creepy CCTV images of her appearing to run into the elevator away from some unknown being. She was later found dead in a sealed water tank on the roof after guests were complaining that the tap water had turned black. I wouldn't sleep there if you paid me. Moving on to number 6, we have Riddle House. From the outside, you guys wouldn't know that this building has a very creepy past. Riddle House in Florida was originally a Victorian funeral parlor. Countless dead people were prepared for burial here, giving it a very deathly vibe even to this day. This is all made worse by the fact that the owner of the house, Carl Riddle, had a former employee called Joseph who hung himself in the attic. It's said that his ghost now attacks men who enter the attic. Apparently women are fine, but after you've heard about this place, I doubt anyone would want to go. Next up at number 5, we have Bell Witch Cave. This cave is said to belong to the Bell Witch. Go there at her wrath. The story goes that a woman called Kate was cheated out of a land purchase by John Bell. When she died, she swore she would haunt him and all his descendants. Over the next 3 years, she tormented the family from her cave, visiting their house at night to scratch, pinch, and attack them. People who visited the cave to investigate swear they've experienced similar things happen to them. The cave is said to be cursed, and even accidentally leaving with a grain of sand could spell death for you. Moving on to number 4, we have Stull Cemetery. Located in Kansas, this cemetery has become famous for supposedly being one of the 7 gateways to hell. Yes, in fact, it's said that the devil himself holds court there. Visitors there can't seem to shake a sickening feeling when they arrive, and at night, you sometimes can't even visit because of police patrols. One video I found even showed the ground on fire for literally no reason that I could see, kind of adding to the whole hell vibe. Some people even said Pope John Paul II even diverted his plane from flying over the area. Perhaps he knew something we don't. Next up at number 3, we have the Byberry Mental Asylum. You guys know how mental asylums are depicted in the movies, right? Well, I think they're all based on Byberry, which was a real one. This Philadelphia State Hospital is now famous for how it treated its mentally ill patients over 100 years ago. By 1960, it was bursting with sick people and criminals who were abused and tormented, which led to its closing in 1990. For years, it was abandoned, visited only by ghost hunters who would hope to meet the tormented souls who were victims of that place. The government even demolished it, but many people say the whole feel of the area can never be removed. Coming in at number 2 now, we have Death Road. You can't expect candy from a place called Death Road. This 7-mile stretch of road in New Jersey is said to be extremely haunted. It runs past Ghost Lake, which people swear has a deathly glow no matter if it's day or night, especially in the old cabin that lies over the lake. There's also an abandoned stable that is often shrouded in fog, with people reportedly seeing apparitions even in clear weather. On top of all that, there's also the legend of a Native American spirit guide who takes the shape of a deer and appears at various points along the road. Oh, and there's also the fact that hundreds of Polaroid photos were found in the woods there in the 90s showing the blurred image of a woman in distress. Those also mysteriously disappeared. I honestly don't know what's going on in that area, but I'm not going to pop by for a visit. And finally now at number 1, we have the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. This museum is built in a former torture base used by the Khmer Rouge during the genocide that they committed. Visitors can walk around the rooms, which contain pictures of the horrific torture and killings that went on there, leading to the death of an estimated 17,000 people. In fact, only 12 people survived. It's said to be one of the most chilling places on the planet, and many people say they leave it a different person to when they arrived. Obviously, it's good to learn about the history and the victims of all this, but I doubt any of us will be able to stomach the true horrors of a place like this.
Okay, coming in at number 10, we have the Suicide Mall. The Luan Plaza in Guangzhou has been dubbed the Suicide Mall because of the spate of deaths that have happened in there over the past 15 years. While over a dozen of these deaths have been ruled as suicide, some people swear that a supernatural force has pushed people over the railings and into the concourse. Weirdly, the mall's name in Chinese symbols looks a lot like the word for corpse, and a lot of locals consider the shopping centre to be cursed. Why is it cursed? Well, it all boils down, like it so often does, to an ancient burial ground. When the mall was built, it seems that the construction team unearthed 8 empty coffins and a Qing dynasty sacrificial chamber. Taoist priests later came in to examine the site and told developers that coffins were brought in to deter evil spirits, and they would have continued to ward off evil had they not been disturbed, but they were. Now strange noises and death plagues the mall, so probably wouldn't fancy popping there for a spot of solo shopping. Often hailed as the most dangerous place in China, at number 9 we have the East Tahang Glass Walk. The bridge in the Tahang Mountains is both thrilling and terrifying. The glass platform is 3,800 feet in the air and is affixed to the mountainside. If you had vertigo, you would not be feeling so great standing on this glass-bottomed walkway staring down into the abyss. There are videos of people literally freaking out as they walk over the bridge. Fear and panic sets in, but even worse, the bridge features a joke cracking effect that's caused people to heavily freak out. Not only that, the cracking effect comes with sound that would really get me. A lot of people have hailed the effect as extremely cruel and dangerous, but China doesn't care. Coming into number 8, we have the Delinga test sites. Not that you could get anywhere near it, but Delinga County is home to a worrying nuclear test site. 12 years ago, Delinga was totally out of limits to foreigners. These days you can go there, but the bases in the northern reaches of the country are army patrolled. Even if they weren't, you really wouldn't fancy wading into a nuclear wasteland. There are 36 launch pads in and around Delinga. Coming into number 7, we have the North Korean border. The North Korean border is a dangerous place to be for obvious reasons, and it would be even scarier if you were alone. There are some reports that the Chinese military might be up to something over there too. Border regions are always sensitive places to be, but the river that separates China and North Korea at Dedong is particularly so because it's so small. As a non-Asian, you may encounter some issues at the area. While the Dedong and Bridge of Friendship area is safe enough for careful tourists, there are some parts of the China-North Korea border which are not very well defined. Accidentally strolling into North Korean territory is a genuine risk. Coming into number 6, we have the Lotus Pond. The Lotus Pond in the University of Hong Kong looks like a place I would love to visit. It's beautiful. I can imagine sitting here and doing some quiet reflection. I'd probably be alright doing this, but if you're a man, you shouldn't ever come here alone. The pond is at the centre of a ghost story involving a lost love. A young couple who would meet by the pond planned to run away together. The girl arranged to meet her love by the pond at midnight, and they were about to start their journey, only he didn't show up. As she headed home, worried and devastated, she saw her boyfriend with another girl. She burst into tears, and in her anguish she threw herself into the pond and drowned. To this day, if a man is walking alone by the pond at midnight, he should be very careful. If he sees a girl, he shouldn't talk to her, as the story goes that the girl's ghost appears after the stroke of 12 and looks to drag men into a watery grave if they engage with her. Coming into number 5, we have Chennai number 81. This terrifying building is located in Beijing and is at the center of a lot of mysticism. The building is sometimes known as the Chennai Church, and it is thought that it used to be used for religious purposes before it was taken over by the communists. The house used to be owned by a Nationalist Party officer, but he then fled to Taiwan, leaving his wife. She in turn hung herself at the home, and her screams are said to be heard wailing out to this day. Again, to this day, the house, which is supposed to be prime real estate, is abandoned and overgrown with ivy. Why? Some say that a number of those who have entered the house have simply not left. Guessing you absolutely don't want to go here alone. This scary house was the setting for a Chinese horror film in 2014 called The House That Never Dies. Rightio then. Coming into number 4, we have the tomb of Qin Shi Huang. The tomb of the former Chinese emperor Qin Shi Huang was discovered when the Terracotta Army was unearthed. The emperor was largely considered to be the first ever emperor of China, having unified 6 fighting states. His death in 210 BC was a big deal, and he entered the afterlife with terracotta replicas of his army, his horses, his family, and his servants. The Terracotta Army was discovered in 1974 in Xi'an and was a pretty special place. It's a great place to visit, but definitely very eerie. The thing is that the actual mausoleum, the burial chamber of the emperor, is out of bounds, and it always has been. The Chinese government simply will not let you in. Now, excavations are banned, and if you were caught there, you would have to answer to armed guards. Beyond that, who knows what spooks lay in wait. It is said that the earth near the tomb is also booby-trapped. On top of that, we all know what happened when the Egyptian tombs were opened. You don't want to be dealing with that level of pestilence, especially not alone. Coming into number 3, we have Subway Line 1. In Beijing, I would be pretty terrified to ride Subway Line 1 alone. The line was first constructed in 1965, and its build was fraught with accidents, including broken equipment and injury or death to workers. It seems that the original build disturbed souls whose graves were disturbed as construction was taking place. As a result, monks were brought in to pacify the spirits. The monks promised the spirits that the metro would close before 11 PM, as it said the dead really like resting between 11 and 1 AM. Right. Honestly, is this just the government's way of taking night trains off the menu? To add spookiness to an already potentially haunted situation, there are 4 ghost stations along Subway Line 1, 2 of which are located in a military region. An abandoned station on a haunted train line. Honestly, rather you than me. Coming into number 2, we have the Forbidden City. China's Forbidden City is said to be deeply haunted. The Forbidden City is an imperial palace from the Ming dynasty to the Qing dynasty. The World Heritage Landmark gets its name from a time when public entrance was forbidden except for the members of the imperial family. The complex has seen some ghastly things over the years, including numerous executions and murders. Since 1925, the Forbidden City has slowly been opening up to visitors, and now 75% of it is available for viewing. However, there are still some secret rooms and courtyards that you're not allowed to visit. The chances of you being alone in the day in the city are pretty slim, seeing as there's around 16 million people visit every year, but at night, well, that's a scarier time altogether. Night staff have reported some terrifying things going on, including strange animals, ghosts, dogs, ghost dogs as well, menacing presences, and a weeping woman in white. I honestly really wouldn't fancy being alone here at night. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the Gobi Desert. The Gobi Desert borders China and Mongolia and is not a place to be visited solo. Aside from deserts being stressful places for solo trips anyway because of the harsh elements and the isolation, this desert is in particular pretty extreme. It's said to be home to the legendary Mongolian deathworm, which doesn't sound like a thing I want to party with. The Mongolian deathworm first came to light in the West when explorer and naturalist Roy Chapman Andrews wrote about his expedition into the Gobi in 1926. It's said to be between 2 and 5 feet long, so up to 1.5 meters. Reports have said it's supposed to be shaped like a sausage with neither head nor tail. It's poisonous and touching it could induce death. Not only that, some accounts say that the worm spews deadly sulfuric acid and emits a strangely deadly electrical charge. Venturing into a desert on your own is a bad idea, but how would you face the Mongolian deathworm solo?
Starting off this list, and at number 10, the Island of the Dolls. Okay, maybe this one I'm a little curious about, but take a look at this.
It looks like a scene from a horror movie. Hundreds of dolls strung up and hanging from trees. Anastasio's uncle started collecting these dolls 50 years ago after he found the body of a young girl who drowned on these shores.
If you don't enjoy creepy, worn out looking dolls hanging from trees, then this is definitely not the place for you. Just south of Mexico City, there's a small island with an incredible sad backstory. It is dedicated to the lost soul of an unfortunate girl who died under unusual circumstances. Apparently these dolls were hung because people claimed that they were being haunted by the spirit of a little girl. So they started to hang dolls in an attempt to please her spirit. But could you imagine an island that is full of terrifying dolls with severed limbs and decapitated heads? I wouldn't even want to visit this island in the daytime, let alone at night. This is a little bit too extreme even for me, so you know what, let's move on. Let's see what else we have on this list. Warren Occult Museum haunts us in at number 9. Yeah, you guessed it, this is the place where haunted artifacts are put on display for the world to enjoy, and for me to be terrified. All of these artifacts belonged to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, and it's believed that these items are some of the most haunted things on this earth. So what exactly is at this museum? Well, the infamous Annabelle doll is housed behind a glass case, and it is believed that this doll can cause serious harm to a person, so that's why it's hidden away in protection. Protection for us, not for the doll. Then we have the wedding dress. Apparently anyone who puts this on will murder their fiance. And then we have the conjuring mirror, the famous mirror. But those are just a few of the haunted artifacts that you can find there. And trust me, you definitely don't want to find yourself in the museum after dark. Who knows what these haunted items are capable of doing. Lincoln Park in Baltimore brings us to number 8. Apparently, if you were to dig a hole in this park, you will probably stumble across a dead body. Since 1946, at least 79 bodies have been found in this park, which is absolutely insane. Because of its numerous accesses to roads, lack of maintenance, and ton of hidden areas off of the regular path, this park has become a popular place to hide dead bodies in. There's even a website that is dedicated to mapping out the locations where the bodies have been found and what happened to each one of the victims. So I can confidently say that this is a place that you do not want to visit at night because you never know who you might run into. And maybe you'll become the next body that gets buried there. Number 7, we have the Union Cemetery in Connecticut, USA. Locals say that this is the most haunted cemetery in Connecticut, but it can also be argued that it's the most haunted cemetery in the USA. According to the local legends, the most famous ghost that haunts these grounds is the White Lady. Lots of people have been able to take pictures of her, and they all look the same. She has long dark hair and wears a bonnet and nightgown. She can mostly be found roaming the roads, and she likes to be hit by oncoming vehicles to give that person a good scare. In 1993, a man hit the lady and he heard a massive thud. When he went out of his car to check the situation, he saw a huge dent in his car and the woman appeared in front of him. The cemetery is locked at night and it's actually patrolled by the police, so yeah, I would say that's probably for the best. And now at number 6, we're talking about Devil's Pool in Queensland, Australia. Well, at first glance, this river looks pretty nice. Well, you would be sadly mistaken. This natural pool is situated between massive boulders, and it's thought to have been cursed by an Aboriginal woman who tragically drowned herself after her husband was taken away from her. Ever since, it's been estimated that 17 other people have lost their lives here, either from falling or getting caught in the fast current. current. Apparently, it is so strong that it can easily trap people in its currents and send them down the river with sharp rocks at every turn. So if you value your life, you wouldn't have the urge to go swimming here, especially at night, because it is believed that the current is 10 times stronger. Now on our list, and at number 5, we have the Eastern State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania, USA. This former prison was built in 1829, and it's infamously known to be the first prison that introduced solitary confinement. Prisoners would be sent here to be completely isolated, and whenever they left their cell, a black hood would be placed over their head to ensure that they didn't have any interactions with anyone else. Due to this prison's harsh approach, many prisoners went insane, and solitary confinement was actually removed there in 1913. But ever since then, reports of heavily paranormal activities have been a common thing. From shadowy figures, evil cackling, and ghostly faces, this prison is sure to terrify anyone who steps foot inside. The Mines of Paris crashes in at number 4. These underground tunnels shouldn't be confused with the Paris Catacombs. These tunnels are not open to the public, and exploring the mines is illegal because it is so dangerous. The tunnels are not regulated, they aren't patrolled, and they are super unsafe. But that still doesn't stop people from going inside of it. Legends has it that cults and strange creatures can be found in the mines, and there might even be a gateway to hell down there. The tunnels stretch 600 kilometers underground, and most of the tunnels are not on any map. So saying that, it is extremely easy to get lost down there. Some hallways are even flooded, and they're so narrow that you can't even go through them. This place is a labyrinth, and it is rumored that if you go down there, you can hear people screaming for help, but you'll never be able to find them. Poveglia, Italy is at number 3 on our list. This place is probably one of the most illegal places someone should ever visit. This island is located off of the coast of northern Italy near Venice. But don't be fooled, this little island isn't a romantic destination. It has a very dark past. Poveglia, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing the name right, but I'm trying my best on this one. But it used to be the home to thousands of refugees, Black Plague victims, and the island acted as a quarantine. So with all of that being said, this island is believed to be extremely haunted, and apparently you can still hear the screams of the victims here. The abandoned asylum is also said to be filled with ghosts of patients that were abused there. So if you're ever in Italy, just stick to the popular tourist spots like Rome, Venice. Don't visit the island, or else you will seriously regret it. Number 2 takes us all the way over to the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. In case you were ever considering staying at the Cecil Hotel, here are a few reasons why you should reconsider, staying at Motel 8 instead. This hotel has been the site of many gruesome suicides and murders. A crazy number of guests have mysteriously died, including one woman who was later found dead on the roof of the hotel after riding in an elevator alone. Oh, and several serial killers have stayed there while they were on a killing spree. So you can literally be sleeping in a room next to a serial killer. All of these incidents forced the owner to change the name of the hotel to Stay on Main, but regardless of the name, this is definitely a place that you never want to check into because you may never check out. And now, topping our list, and at number 1, we have the Suicide Forest in Japan, known as the place that you go to but never come back from, aka the Suicide Forest that Logan Paul himself made famous. He went in as a liked YouTuber and came out hated. So it's estimated that 100 people a year committed suicide there, and for this reason, a lot of people believe that this forest is haunted. The Suicide Forest is so thick and dense, some people use guide wire to avoid getting lost. Well, that's because if you can't get out, no one will be able to hear your screams. It should also be noted that if you go off the path, you will most likely stumble across a dead body, decaying bones, or other dark human remains. Either way, I would stay far away from this place, especially at nighttime.
Kicking off our list at number 10, Room 206. This gives me Stephen King 1408 vibes, and I'm not sure that you're ready. Next time you visit Florida, make sure you read every customer review before you check into a hotel, because some of them might be full of ghosts. That might be a thing that you just might have to deal with. Room 206 at the Super on International Drive, apparently it's super haunted. Guests have reported the bed shaking in the middle of the night, probably terrible for your sleep, or freezing cold air even though the AC is turned off. And worst of all, guests have seen their bed look as though somebody was sleeping there moments before, even though it was perfectly made right before they checked in. Can ghosts squat? Is that legal? We've got a couple of spirit squatters in our room. Gotta move. Number 9, Disney on Ice. Many families love to visit Orlando at this time of year. The theme parks there are spectacular, especially Disney World. I went once when I was younger, but I don't recall ever seeing a real life Walt Disney. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that he died in 1966. Who knows? But never say never. One of Orlando's oldest tales is that Walt Disney had his body cryogenically frozen after his death. And right now, apparently it's being stored in a bunker underneath the theme park. I mean, that's a bit more creative than being cremated. I'll give him that. It's pretty Walt Disney of him just to freeze himself forever. A grad from the University of Central Florida Film School, Benjamin Lancaster, they actually made a film about this whole idea. It's called The Further Adventures of Walt's Frozen Head. That's a family classic, some would say. Number 8, Scarlett O'Hara's. You're gonna need 2 pieces of ID for this next one, alright? Perhaps the most haunted bar in Florida, located in St. Augustine, Scarlett O'Hara's is haunted by a past owner. Many believe that spirit likes to make itself known to guests. That's always fun. Try and go grab a pint and now you got a ghoul in front of you. That spirit is one of George Coley. Now George sadly bit the bullet one night when he was in his bathtub, so now we have a series of unexplainable events. Plates and glasses will sometimes move across the bar on their own, and the jukebox keeps playing Help Me Rhonda even when it's unplugged. So that's absolutely terrifying. If you want to check it out now, be warned, because it's a full-on tourist attraction at this point. But if you go, you can pose alongside the same bathtub that George Coley died in. Yeah, how lovely is that? Are we going to Disney World? Nah, even better, Scarlett O'Hara's. Yeah, you're gonna love it. Number 7, Stranahan House. You don't want to be stranded at the Stranahan House. It's gonna be bad news. Fort Lauderdale has a few haunted hidden gems, and the oldest house just happens to be the most haunted. What do you know? What odds are that? What odds are that? What are those odds? There we go. The house's OG owner was Frank Stranahan, and today, if you visit ye old stomping grounds, well, you might catch Frank in a photo or two. It's said that Frank still oversees the place and he regularly shows up in guests' photos. So this ghost likes to photobomb. That's pretty amazing. I kind of like that. I suppose being trapped in the same house for all of eternity probably gets a little boring from time to time. Just to pop into a photo, throw some peace signs up, and then disappear back into the walls. Ivy Stranahan, Frank's late wife, she also has made an appearance or two. Nice. True love is haunting the same house forever. Guests have felt a cold hand on their shoulder, and her perfume still lingers in the hallway. Must have been some good, strong stuff. Nice. Now, it's not all fun and games. Augustus Stranahan, aka Frank's father, well, his ghost likes to throw books. It's really aggressive, so heads up for that, I guess, if you go. Cheers. Number 6, the Plaza Resort and Spa. Ah, yes, kick back and relax with ghosts. It's just what you want. You're never alone, I guess. That's a plus side. The Plaza Resort and Spa sounds like a relaxing getaway until you start looking up footage of the actual resort. One's gonna get your attention for sure. Back in August 2013, security cameras captured late night footage of this shape-shifting ghost, some sort of spirit, some scary blob. It's bad news, really, in any regard. What happened was the original building was destroyed by fire in 1909, and current staff will testify that they've seen the ghosts of victims caught in that blaze. How they know? I have no idea, but apparently they do know. It's a lot of details for one ghost appearance. One of the most common sightings includes a woman whose spirit is known to mess with the elevators and make items in the kitchen disappear. Okay, really? That last one's for sure an employee stealing food. He's like, oh yeah, I don't know. I think a ghost ate that cheesecake, boss. I don't know, spooky stuff, spooky. Number 5, the Blue Anchor Pub. Another bar, another haunted bill to pay. Here we go, debit or credit. Heading over to Delray Beach, the Blue Anchor Pub was built in 1840s in London, but the wooden interior was sent to New York City and then later on sent to Florida in 1996. So yeah, these spirits must be confused. They go from Jack the Ripper to some dude wearing a Yankees hat talking to a TV. Trapped in the wooden interior is the ghost of one Bertha Starkey, who was sadly killed by her husband back in the 1840s. Now, you know Bertha is lurking about when you hear rattling pots in the kitchen, and sometimes if you're really unlucky, you'll hear wailing in the middle of the night. Nice. Again, horrible sleep at this place. The Blue Anchor sounds like a really relaxing time, but every night at 10 o'clock, the current owners will blast a ship horn to scare away her spirit. I don't know, I feel like blaring a ship horn at 10 p.m. is more jarring than some pots and pans moving sometimes. You know what I mean? I'd rather hear the pots and pans than in the middle of the night. No way. Number 4, the Biltmore Hotel. Another hotel to avoid at all costs. Awesome, we love these ones. First of all, do you actually like staying at a hotel? Some people love it. Some people find it super relaxing. I can't help but think about what went on in the bed before me. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, why does this part of the bed feel a little bit caved in? What's going on here? Every time I'm in a hotel, I have the worst dreams and I can't sleep at all. The Biltmore Hotel in the city of Coral Gables is also one of the most haunted hotels in Florida. You've probably heard of this at some point. It all started in 1926 during initial construction. The Biltmore witnessed a foul killing on the 13th floor. The 13th floor of all floors, my God. The Biltmore was also turned into a military hotel during World War II before ultimately being closed and then abandoned later in 1968. Now, the city renovated the hotel later on in the 80s, but it didn't take long for ghost stories to start to spread. It's horrible, horrible past, I mean, more than fair. Now, of course, the most activity is on the 13th floor, so if you do check this one out, really double down, go to the haunted floor, you know, don't just look outside and then book. Go in, stay a night. I can't believe some buildings don't have a 13th floor. Can you imagine that? Well, they do, but everyone pretends that they don't. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, it's 12. I don't know, we'll see. Are you a 13th floor believer? Comment down below. Me personally, I don't think so, because it's the 14th or the 12th. Or the 13th, I don't know anymore. No one knows anymore. It goes 11, 12, 14. You're like, really? What's the 14s? We know what's going on here, come on. Number 3, Tampa Theater. If you're a fellow theater kid, you're also gonna love this one. Here we go. Tampa Theater opened up in 1926. The theater is now said, of course, to be haunted by a woman that was struck and killed by a carriage on the property. Imagine being hit by a carriage, it's so slow. This was actually before the theater was built, so her spirit has been there for a while. If you go to Tampa Theater today, you might catch a glimpse of that woman in a white gown walking across the mezzanine hallway. This time without carriages whipping through, hopefully, sans carriage. Imagine telling somebody in front of you to sit down during a show, then they just disappear. You're like, I think that was a ghost. I think that was probably a ghost. It says in the playbill, ghost, so maybe that was her. Tampa Theater, of course, has leaned into these claims. Now they offer Ghosts of Tampa Theater Tour, where guests can learn about its haunted history. I'd love to do this tour. I don't know, maybe I'll go to Florida. Who knows? I won't. I'm probably not going to. Number 2, Key West Cemetery. A cemetery that's haunted. Get out of town. You don't say. The Beachside Cemetery was built in 1847. Now, it was built specifically for victims of a hurricane that occurred a year prior in 1846. That's terrible. Now, the cemetery is the final resting place for roughly 80,000 to 100,000 people. So yeah, I can only assume there's a ghost or two hanging out. That's extremely tragic. Walking through a graveyard at night is scary enough anytime, but Key West Cemetery is so specific that the entire time you're walking through, you feel connected in a way. Now, me personally, I'm all set. I don't want to feel connected to an 1846 tragedy. I'm all set. I'll go the long way around the cemetery, then I'll meet you on the other side, if anything. But if you're into this kind of thing, they also offer ghost tours, so knock yourself out. There you go. Apparently, it's too scary for children, so that's a plus. Lines will be a little shorter than usual. And finally, number 1, St. Augustine Lighthouse. A scary lighthouse? How? How is that possible? The St. Augustine Lighthouse is located, of course, in Florida and was built between 1871 and 1874. And it's considered Florida's first official lighthouse ever. Imagine that. Boom, let there be light. Hey, I made you a lighthouse. Enjoy, we're all good now. There have been several tragic events over the following years, seeing as it's the first lighthouse ever. It's seen a lot of history. But even during initial construction, there were several freak accidents on site. Today, said spirits are still lurking about. Sightings of shadowy figures are common, but just one time, somebody saw a hand coming through the tower door. Yeah, a floaty hand, like from Idle Hands. How terrifying is that? Can you imagine just a Smash Bros hand just lurking near you? Several guests have reported furniture also moving around on its own, which is definitely a hazard. And one person even said that they had some of their arm hairs plucked off of them while they were in the basement. Probably that floaty weird hand, just doink. Give me one of those. Another guest felt someone grab their ankle at one point while walking down a hallway, which actually caused them to trip and fall down, so something's going on. I don't know what this ghost hand wants, but it's pretty chaotic to me, it seems.